Hey guys, it's Cheryl. Welcome to my channel. So I just recently moved here in Germany and I was required to take the A1 German exam. I did not have enough time to prepare for it. I only had a couple of weeks, so it was a bit of a very tight schedule. Initially, I thought of enrolling at a review center to help me prep for my test. However, after finding out the cost of review centers here in Germany, I've decided to just take matters into my own hands. So I've decided to do self-study on my own, and luckily I passed the exam without spending a single cent on review centers, on training materials. It's actually amazing how much resources you can find online nowadays. So we are very lucky in this day and age that we can just self-study on our own and find all these brilliant materials online for free. Totally for free. So today I just wanted to share my experience and share some tips as well on how I did it, how I passed the test on my own, self-study with very little time to prepare. So I just wanted to help you guys, you fellow A1 test takers for the German language. I know it can be very overwhelming at the beginning. It can even be frustrating, especially if you're doing it on your own. But let me tell you, it is possible. If I did it, so can you. Alright, so let's just get right onto the video. So here are the 5 things that I did to pass the German A1 exam on my own, self-study with very little time to prepare. So tip number 1, it's very important to have the proper mindset. So you have to understand that you are trying to learn. This preparation is just for taking and passing the German A1 exam, and it is not you learning the entire A1 course, because the entire A1 level is very broad, it's very deep. There's a lot of vocabulary, there's a lot of grammatical structures. It's very difficult. It's impossible for me to learn the entire A1 course in just a span of a couple weeks. So I have to set this proper mindset of just learning, studying to pass the German A1 exam. Alright, so that was tip number 1, setting a proper mindset, and the goal is to just pass the A1 exam and not to learn the entire A1 course. Alright, let's go to tip number 2. So this is the second thing that I did in order for me to successfully pass the A1 exam. And it is to familiarize the structure of the exam. So I tried to do a research. I went to the website of this Goethe Institute, the official website. They have some sample exams that you can practice with. So I tried to download some sample tests, how the worksheets or the answer sheets look like. I also downloaded the entire flow of the exam. So from the different parts of the exam, so it has the reading, the listening part, the writing, and the speaking part. Even the speaking part, they also included in the sample exam, so you can find it online. And I can also make a different video if you guys wanted sample exams. I can share with you guys. That is tip number 2. You have to familiarize the flow of the entire exam. It's very important for you to have a visualization of how the exam is going to be, how it's going to look like. So you will know what to expect on the day of the exam, and you would also know how to fill out this answer sheets, where you should put your first name, your last name, your address, like the answers for every part. What do you do when you need to change your answers? And also, it's very important for you to familiarize the instructions. For example, for the reading part, what do the instructions mean? The directions. For the listening part, you would also know how much time you will get for every item, so that you would be able to manage your time wisely during the exam. It's very important to have a clear visualization, clear idea of how the entire exam is gonna look like the flow of the exam, how much time you will get, how to fill out these answer sheets. So that is very important. So that's the second thing that I did. All right, so that was tip number 2. Now let's move on to tip number 3. So this is the third thing that I made sure to do in order for me to pass the exam, and that is to create a study plan. Depending on how much time you have, for example, if you only have a week to prepare, so you can use the first day to get familiar with the entire flow of the exam, how every part looks like, how the reading, writing, listening, and speaking part looks like, what to expect, and how to fill out the answer sheets, and just familiarize the entire flow of the exam, the instructions, what do they mean, how to properly fill out the answer sheet. Just try to understand the entire flow of the exam. And then on the second day, you can maybe try to schedule learning everything about reading. And then the third day, you can learn everything about listening. And then the fourth day about speaking. And then the next day will be writing. And on the last day, you can do a mock test. So this is the time where you will try to test yourself. You can time yourself. The time that you do should be similar to the ones that they usually provide at the testing center. So you have to check how much time you get for the entire test, or maybe for every part of the exam. So you can do a mock test on the end of the week if you only have a week, because that's what I did at the beginning. I just tried to learn the entire flow of the exam, and then I tried to learn every part every day, or I have to schedule that I will only learn reading, I will only learn writing for this day, I will only learn listening for this day. In that way, you can really focus on every part as well. Because sometimes if you just go through the entire test in one again and again, maybe it can be a little bit confusing, overwhelming even, especially if you're doing this on your own. But it's nice to do it piece by piece or part by part. I know it can be very confusing, especially if you have zero knowledge of the German language, just like I did. I mean, I had zero prior knowledge of the German language, so it was very, very overwhelming. However, I managed to pass the test, to do self-study, learn it on my own by simply just trying to break it down into smaller parts, less intimidating. All right, so that is tip number 3. All right, so now let's get on to tip number 4. So tip number 4 is to memorize. Memorize as much as you can for the parts where you can. I know a lot of you might think it's impossible to memorize for an exam where you do not really know what questions will come out. But let me tell you, for the German A1 exam, it's actually possible. There are parts where you can memorize and prepare. For example, for me, I did for the speaking part. It has the first part where you do a self-introduction. So you're basically just trying to introduce yourself. What's your name, your occupation, where you come from, and your hobbies. These are just simple details, so you can memorize this. Try to put effort into this so that you can also feel confident when you're doing the speaking part. I know it can be a little bit difficult at first, especially if you don't know how to pronounce these words, but you know, make use, take advantage of the translators that we have online. That's what I did, the vowels and the alphabet, the sounds, how they're supposed to be spoken. But yeah, I managed to do it. So I just did translators. I translate, oh, these are my hobbies. I am Cheryl. So yeah, try to memorize this and try to put some effort into your self-introduction. And yeah, so that's the first part. And also the second part of the listening, you will be given some pictures where you will have to ask some questions. And also when someone asks you a question, then you will have to like respond to a question. So that can be a little bit difficult, but you can also prepare for those. Try to memorize a set of questioning structures. So there are a few grammatical structures where you can ask something. Very simple ones. Don't try to complicate things because this is A1, and most of the testing proctors, they don't really focus on how grandiose the vocabulary that you're using, but they focus on the simple grammatical structure. So it's like very easy, 3, 4, 5 words in a sentence. You can like memorize some questions, sample questions that you can use, general question structures, and then also some general answers that you can always, you know, just tweak and tailor make it in order to fit the scenario that will be given during the exam day. So that's for the speaking part. Also for the writing part, you can memorize, because there is the second part of writing is where you will have to respond to an email. So this part, usually there are very few scenarios that may come out. It's either responding to an invite, so someone invited you to an event, to a birthday party, or maybe you will have to ask for an inquiry, for a travel inquiry, and also maybe there's a scenario where you will be asked to decline an offer or decline an invite. So it's very common. These are the common scenarios that come out in the email writing. So you can memorize some email responses. You can start with the salutation. How do you say hi, sir, hello, sir, good day, and then how do you put your name at the end? The normal, you know, flow of email. And also it's very important to take note that in email writing, you have to also determine if this email is an informal email or should you write it as a formal email, because there are some salutations that you can use for formal and there are salutations that you can use for informal. So that's very important as well to take note. But those things you can definitely memorize. There are so many sample email writing responses online for free. You can find them. And also I will try to make another video specifically just for maybe preparing for writing tests or just for the reading test or the speaking part or the listening part. So let me know if you want to. I can also share that one. I thought it was going to be a little bit longer for this video, so I've decided to maybe just create a separate video for that. But let me know what you guys think or if you need. Alright, so that is what I did. Very important. I really memorized a lot, and also try to memorize, because once you have this sample exam, sample tests from the official website of Goethe Institute, or you can also find them online, some sample prep tests for A1 exam. You will see very common vocabulary words that are very repetitive in the entire exam. They come out on the speaking part, they come out on the reading, writing. Yeah, so they come out all throughout the entire flow of the exam. And if you try different multiple sample tests, then you will notice there are very common words that usually are very repetitive, so you can memorize those. So that's basically it. Try to memorize as much as you can in parts where you can. It is possible. Alright, so that was tip number 4. Now let's move on to tip number 5, our 5th and final tip, and I think is the most important tip, and that is to meditate. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of staying and remaining calm and relaxed, not only on the day of your exam, but also before the day of the exam. It's very important for you to get proper and enough sleep, at least 8 hours. I know it can be tempting to try to squeeze in a little bit more of studying and memorizing on the day or before the day of the exam, but trust me, it's just gonna do more harm than good, because it will just add up to your anxiety or your nervousness. So try to just, be calm, focus on trying to be relaxed before and on the day of your exam. Don't try to memorize anymore. You know, you've done your part, you've done your preparation. Believe that you can do this, and just try to have a calm and clear mind on the day of the exam. So that is very important. Try to go out, do some sports in the day before the exam, maybe meet some friends. Just do relaxing activities and not try to cram last minute, and not try to memorize more, because it's really detrimental to your entire preparation for the exam. So yeah, that's very important. And it happens to a lot of people where they get mental block on the day of the exam. They're having this information overload, especially in the day of the exam. So it's very important to meditate, practice breathing, and just believe in yourself that you did the right preparation for the exam, and you can pass the test. All right, so that's it. That's for our fifth and final tip. Again, try to meditate. So that's it. Those were the 5 things that I did in order to pass the German A1 exam completely on my own with very little time to prepare. Again, tip number 1 is to set a proper mindset, and that is to pass the exam and not to learn the entire A1 course. Tip number 2 is to familiarize the structure of the exam. Try to get a clear visualization of the entire flow of the entire exam. And then tip number 3, and that is to create a study plan. So make sure that you can allocate enough time for every part of the exam. And tip number 4, that is to memorize as much as you can for the parts where you can, just the common vocabulary, common grammatical structures, just the usual. And tip number 5, and I think the most important tip of them all, is to meditate. Again, it's very important to remain calm and relaxed on and before the day of your exam. Get enough sleep, have fun. So if you follow all these 5 tips, I'm sure you will ace the exam. I'm sure you will pass the exam, no doubt about it. I know you can do this. A1 exam is just the basic, the foundation of the German language. So I think you are capable of passing the exam. And again, I'm Cheryl. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end of the video. I hope you find this video useful. I hope you will pass the exam. Best of luck, and let me know how it goes.